by Chris. I've known Chris for a while, and I'm going to ask him to come on stage, even though he told me not to, because he's not having a great day. But Chris, before he talks about the company, just did a 30-day, every day he vlogged for 4 or 5 minutes, and that was crazy. Anyway, Golden Hour Media by Chris.
Yeah, so I came up to Moby and I was like, I don't want to pitch these people on video, even though we're a corporate sponsor of video. I've been coming here like 18 months and seeing a lot of really awesome pitch decks. And some people start from just an idea to a fully fleshed out company that's already generating revenue and wants to take it to the next level. And you know, you guys aren't here to be pitched to. You already know video works, that it converts, that it's good for SEO, that it keeps people on your pages longer. So I don't know, I want to talk about how in my more than a decade in the industry, I've seen how video is really effective at creating credibility, authenticity, and authority in a way that no other medium really can. You know, I went to UT Film School here, graduated back in 2011, because I thought it was the purest form of self-expression, right? Like as an artist, and making little indie films and documentaries. And I've since applied that knowledge to brand storytelling and marketing. I make videos that help people make money, but that original thought, right, of self-expression and authenticity and authority and really being able to explain a really complicated concept and boil it down to a really consumable deliverable to your audience, you know, it works, and it's a really great experience. So I love what I get to do working with tech people, particularly because I'm super passionate about tech and I'm on the Verge and TechCrunch every single day, to just like come out here and see these pitches and see what you guys are doing. And I think we're in the best city in the world for this industry. It's a lot cheaper than California. So anyway, I hope you guys really enjoy tonight, and if you guys want to talk about marketing afterwards, I'd love to chat.
Thanks, Chris. Fun fact about video, 84% of Facebook videos are viewed without sound. So if you do video, please have captions, otherwise no one's going to see your content. Next up is TCRE. Johan's going to talk about that.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple, guys. I'm actually the organizer. Thanks for coming. Doing actually real estate investment. So any flips, any deals that you guys run into, come to me if you need some money funding, and that's pretty much what I do. We support real estate properties.
Cool. The Austin Fire Show is my podcast. I started about 8 months ago after 2 failed projects, but you guys don't want to know about that. I interview entrepreneurs, creators, and just interesting people around Austin, like the designer of Austin's airport, Texas Woman Entrepreneur of the Year, CEO of a 3-day startup. Oh, I love 3-day startup, and Data.world, and an eCoin exchange, etc. So check it out, and I'll have another plug for the show in the presentation. So next is Euroway. Is that Johan? Are they here?
She's outside.
She's not here.
She's not gonna come.
Okay, well, Euroway is awesome. It's something with sports. Woohoo, what a pitch, right? Let's go. And then Telefy, I believe the person for Telefy is right here. He's going to quickly talk about Telefy as a sponsor, and I'm going to keep talking until you get here. It's like opening a door for someone and you walk past it.
Thanks, Louis. Hi, I moved from London here a couple of months back. I didn't know what to expect, and started going to meetups and Capital Factory and stuff. And what I love is the energy of this city, the ecosystem which it has. Telefy is my 3rd startup venture. It's a consumer. Sorry. Hello. Okay. So at Telefy, what we do is we capture consumer experiences. We just heard good facts about video. We do that in audio video across the customer journey. We partner with Tech Maps, and that's something you'll be experienced today as well. We capture feedback and reviews in multi-mode, multi-device across multiple channels. And then we run insights and analytics on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me mention something. So with Telefy, we actually want to get you feedback, guys. So later on, after this evening, we'll be sending an email out to everybody to give us a feedback based on that, and then you guys can respond, and whoever responds, we'll choose one winner randomly, and next month you can come in for free. I think he was going to mention that too.
And he mentioned, so we're going to send a link tomorrow, and one lucky winner will get a free, I like to say it's dinner. Honestly, I eat so much over here, but you're going to get a free ticket for the next event. And then we have Do Your Promo. Are they here? No.
They do our shirts.
They do our shirts. I'm not wearing them, but they do our shirts. Yes, go shirts. And Your Way actually is a volleyball social club. And if you have kids or you're interested in joining a volleyball social club, you can join that. If you want to be a sponsor and come up and talk to about 50 new people, actually no, 30 new people every week, every month, talk about your business, get some exposure, you can do that. Today's format, again, Brett's going to come up in a few minutes, talk for 20 minutes, and we're going to do a 5-minute Q&A. Then the best part, or well, depending on the pitch, maybe the best or the worst part, the pitches and the Q&A, and I will cut people off. It's for the betterment. So, I'm the pitch coach for these guys, and this is the first time we're kind of incorporating pitch feedback into the actual event. Before it was, like I mentioned, talking to the founders before, not really helpful. So, these are like the 8 elements that a pitch should hit. Even if it's 3 to 5 minutes, it's good if you hit all of them, but I will have feedback based on these exact elements: story, customer segments, problem, solution, and give feedback to the presenters. Then give them also a quick worksheet where if they need to clarify their idea, do it. Chris was 100% right. It's really hard for a founder to boil it down because they can think of 100 ways for one thing to make money, or they think their business can do 100 things. It's really hard. So it's a good structure to boil it down in 20 sentences and have a pitch. I'll have printouts, 10, 15 for the rest of you. If you want a soft copy, email me at moby@AustinFireShow. I'll send a link and also set up a pitch session if you're looking for pitching feedback. And the last episode in my podcast was actually about pitching an idea, and I use examples from Airbnb, LinkedIn, YouTube, talking about their problem, their solution, their advantage. So if you're looking to pitch here or somewhere else, or just want to boil down your idea, email me and we will talk. Any questions about this? Cool. I love the energy. I like it. So for co-founders, this is the basic elevator pitch. Austin's a big networking town, so you probably have a elevator pitch ready. But you want to talk to someone, you want to work for a startup, you want to co-found one. Just who are you, what are your skill sets, and I can't go much beyond that. Again, Austin's a big networking city, and almost everything that this tech map has built, and even my stuff, built on networking. Notes, pick up your trash, and we'll be out by 9 p.m. In the meantime, try to finish as much beer as possible. Unless you're presenting, don't do that. Do not get drunk. It doesn't help with confidence. And did anyone park downstairs? So it's super expensive, and you can get validation for $5. So front desk will have that. Don't pay too much. And
is that the front desk here or?
over here,
Okay.
right? You know, Capital Factory right here. And also, street parking is free after 6. So if you find that, you can also do that. Beyond that, we have 5 pitches. Butler AI, wonderful name. Volt 480, Gardino, Drive Better, Dynamic Agreement by these 5 people. And we're going to do that after, and I'm going to send a link about feedback. But my part is pretty much over, and I'm going to ask Brett to come and talk about a big problem that entrepreneurs have. How would you not screw up your partnership? Because number one, you can't do it alone. Probably not. We like to think we're that smart, but we can't. We need help. Second is you got to pick the right person and how to kind of prove your partnership. Cool? Can I bring it up?
I'm bringing it up.
Sweet. And here's Brett.
Evening.
In 2010, is that too loud? Is that better? In 2010, I became general counsel of a publicly traded company, an international oilfield services company called Trico Marine. Trico had about 2,000 employees spread across the globe. About 90% of them, scoot back, over 90% of them outside the United States, including 500 based in Norway. And the Norwegian employees have become our employees when Trico Marine bought a standalone Norwegian company in 2008, about a year and a half before I was on the scene. They paid $1.4 billion, which was twice their market cap at the time. So Trico Marine bet big on a transformative acquisition, and they failed. They failed for two reasons. The first, and it's hard to put this on Trico, was timing. So I know you're tech entrepreneurs, you're not necessarily from the oil patch, but our business was highly dependent on the price of oil. Oil hit the highest it's ever hit on July 1st of 2008. We did the acquisition, that was $155 a barrel. We did the acquisition, Trico did the acquisition on June 13th of 2008. So beneficiary of awfully poor timing. Second reason, and I actually think Trico would have survived this acquisition, would have made it work, but for this second reason, is they failed at the process of integrating the acquisition. So I had been around a lot of mergers and acquisitions before then. Nothing quite on this scale, nothing with the cross-border implications that were here, and nothing where I had a first row seat to kind of the process from a business standpoint of integrating a company like that. No one on the deal team appreciated just how difficult this was going to be. It turns out there were some pretty significant differences, cultural differences, between Norway and the United States. Actually, it turns out there's a lot of cultural differences between any country and any country, but particularly Norway and the US. When I got in there, we were still messing around with this acquisition, a year and a half after we'd started. And we just couldn't get the employees to work well and play well together. So I started looking for resources to help me understand what's going on here. It was quite clear that our C-suite spoke a different language, had a different worldview than the executives of the company that we had purchased. My research led me to a Dutch psychologist and anthropologist named Geert Hofstede. Now, Geert Hofstede came up with the aptly named Hofstede's Scale of Cultural Dimensions. And he's got 6 major cultural dimensions. Now, cultural dimension is a cultural attribute. It's basically an attribute of a culture that exists on a continuum. On one side, black, on the other side, white. So I'm not going to go through all of the dimensions, but I'm going to focus on one that's particularly important for my talk tonight. And that's individualism versus collectivism. So again, this is a continuum, right? And it's all relative. The usefulness of the scale is to compare one country to another. So on one side, you've got collectivism, which you could think of as a society that believes in a tightly knit social framework, where the members of the society, of the group, are meant to hold each other up. On the other end of the spectrum is individualism. So pure individualism is all about me. It's a loosely knit framework in society where the individual is sacrosanct. Now, it turns out the United States scores off the charts on individualism. A 91, number 1 of the 81 countries I've seen ranked on the scale. Now, Norway's not that far different, but it's quite a bit different. And on the other items, it's considerably. We are indeed the land of the me. We are a country of I, or me. And make no doubt about it, whatever our commander-in-chief says, I don't care where you were born and whether or not you're going to stay here. If you're here now, you're part of my we. Although we are a me. So this cultural emphasis on individuality, this individualism, shows itself all throughout our culture, including on the big screen, right? Dirty Harry, James Bond, the Lone Ranger, right? These mythical, tough loner characters. Take it off the big screen, take it to the real world, look back at our history, the narrative is told through the lens of the single individual, for the most part. So when it came to settling the West, you've got Sam Houston, Wyatt Earp, Davy Crockett. got Lewis and Clark, who stand as the exception to the rule, the we in the land of I explorers. Social change, also a narrative that's told by the individual. Susan B. Anthony, Martin Luther King, Harvey Milk. And after all, you didn't come here for a history lesson tonight. You came to talk about business. Business is the same way, particularly when you look far back. Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. We think the stories we tell ourselves, the history, is in terms of I. That's what we've been taught. Now it turns out it's pretty much a myth that there really aren't that many loners outside of the big screen. In fact, Andrew Carnegie had a partner, Henry Clay Frick. John D. Rockefeller had Maurice Clark. Even Henry Ford had a fellow named Alexander Malcolmson you've never heard of, but was a part of all of the Ford company in the beginning. And certainly Thomas Edison, you didn't think he invented the light bulb alone, did you? He had a whole group in Menlo Park, people called muckers, the muckers, who were doing exactly what he did. They weren't hires, they were tinkering at the same level as he was. So it turns out, you see, although we have this individualist streak, this streak for individualism, and that's what we've been taught, really we're innately wired to work together. Atlantic Monthly published the results of a Harvard study that followed 250 men from 1930 to early 2000, 70 years. Checked in with them every 5 years, interviewed them, did in-depth surveys to figure out what makes people happy. Turns out it's not health, it's not wealth, not social status. You know what it is? Relationships. Love, connection, community. We are innately wired to work together. Okay? When it comes down to the co-founder level, and back up, let me talk about me for just a quick second. Aside from my legal practice, which I don't particularly consider entrepreneurship, it's more like freelancing. But I've launched 6 companies, 2 tech companies, 1 media company, 1 energy company, 2 financial services companies. I've gone it alone, I've gone it with people. No question in my mind that going it with people, with launching with other founders, is a much better way to do things. I think you've got a higher likelihood of success. We'll talk about that in a moment. You've got higher upside, your ceiling is higher, and I think it's a heck of a lot more fun. Specifically, you've got multiple opinions, which could be good, which could be bad, but generally I think it's good. You've got more people weighing in on issues. You've got enhanced perspective. You've got a more well-rounded collective skill set. And you have someone to share the highs and the lows. And anyone who's launched anything of any significance knows there are lows. Anyone who's done that knows being at the top of the world on one day, being at the bottom of it the next, and going back and forth and back and forth. So it's very great to have someone to share that bumpy ride. Ooh. Of course, I'm not the only one saying this, right? Paul Graham, the Y Combinator co-founder, wrote a blog post called The 18 Mistakes That Kill Startups. Number 1 on there, single founder. Graham said it's a vote of no confidence, right? The person couldn't even attract a friend or 2 to join the venture, right? More seriously, he talks about just the difficulty of getting anything done in today's world. VCs, make no doubt about it, like it or not, many of them will not back solo co-founders. So whether or not you can be successful, and you can, we'll get to that in a minute, whether or not you can, no question it's harder, and a lot of the money is telling you need to have a co-founder. Beating the odds, of course, there are modern day examples of it. Jeff Bezos is one of them. Certainly, this isn't the only authority, Paul Graham and Brett Cenkus. You can do this alone. My point is it's considerably more difficult. Okay, the odds are much more stacked against you. I am aware of a TechCrunch article that talks about it being a fairly close call. No question that data is an outlier. Most of the data shows you're much, much more likely to be successful, raise money, have a successful exit as part of a multi-founder startup. World is getting, whether or not it was ever close, and it probably was. If we look back at our history, we certainly see a lot more what seemed to be solo business moguls. Whether or not it was ever close, I believe it's getting much harder to go it alone. world's getting much faster, getting much more competitive, and it's getting much more complex. Right? The Fortune 500 turns over every 15 years. Used to turn over every 75 years. Okay? Solo founders take 3.6 times longer to get to scale than a team of just 2. In a world that's that fast, that complex, having a well-rounded skill set and being able to work in teams is what wins. And it's not very surprising to me that today we think a lot more in terms of partners. We think of Gates and Allen, Wozniak and Jobs, Brin and Page. But there's a problem. There's a problem. Problem is that 65% of startups fail due to co-founder conflict. This is from a study in 2012 by Noah Wasserman, a Harvard Business School professor. Studied 10,000 startups, and this is the number he came up with. It's staggering, close to 2/3. And when you think about it, there is a gem, a little bit of a silver lining in this. And that's if you believe me, if you believe Paul Grimm, if you believe the data that I've seen, that you're more likely to be successful with co-founders, even when you have a risk factor that takes down 2/3 of startups, that solo founders don't even face. Solo founder companies don't go down because of co-founder conflict. So in that world, all you need to do, right, this is it, is solve for this problem. All you need to do is figure out how to work well and play well with people. Whether you're acquiring a $1.4 billion Norwegian company or you're launching the next big thing, just have to figure out how to be the right partner, co-founder, find the right partner, co-founder, and work well together. So the challenge of this, though, is that we've been fed all this cultural material, all these big screen examples, all these historical narratives of these solos who changed the world. It's fed our egos, it's fomented our insecurities, it's made us think we are meant to do this alone. It's made us think we're the best one to do this. It's made us, frankly, collectively as a society, pretty delusional. Fact, 90% of Americans think they're the top 10% of drivers. That's the general public, all right? That's delusion at large. Let's take it down to the level of this room, all of you, okay? You all have convinced yourself, you've self-selected to go the entrepreneurial route, to pass up paychecks, health benefits, 401ks, free lunches, all your national holidays off to go build the next big thing. It doesn't get crazier than that. It doesn't get more confidence versus delusion. I'd say you're a mile over the divide, right? But that's the entrepreneurial journey. Your individualistic streak is so strong relative to the general public. So how are you going to make this work? How are you going to work well and play well with co-founders? I've got four things to keep in mind, okay? And they're quite simple, to the point where I think you might laugh me out of here. But let's get into them. The first is, first and foremost, keep your eyes wide open. Now I'm working on something else aside from my law practice around marriage or relationships. It's kind of a coaching thing. There's a book piece of it. It's a little platform. And so I spent a lot of time, or have recently, analogizing between marriage and business partnerships, because there's an awful lot in common to them. My Aunt Diane used to say, before marriage, keep your eyes wide open. And after marriage, keep them half shut. Now, I don't know, I'm still wrestling with the half shut thing. But she's spot on the first point, okay? Keep your eyes wide open. Events like this are tremendous. Austin's got plenty of them to get out and meet co-founders. Excellent way to meet someone. But don't ink your partnership deal on the way out the door, okay? There's more important things or other things that matter besides having complementary skill sets, besides seeing the same customer pain points. Little squishy thing called values. I had a business partner in my second financial services company when we shuttered about a year ago to very little fanfare, without making very much money. It just wasn't the right time, partnership, all sorts of things. And it turned out we had very, very different values. Now, I had listened to most of my advice, but maybe not quite all of it, maybe not probed everything I should have. It turns out that I was very interested in changing the industry, doing something very interesting. And he wanted to make money. Now, there's nothing wrong with making money, and I happen to believe if you change the world, you'll make money. But it's two very different ways of coming at things. And it turned out our values just conflicted, and it came down to just day-to-day, decision after decision. Values. There's other things that matter. How hard are you going to work? What are you going to sacrifice for this? When are you going to throw in the towel, okay? These things are important things to probe. Walk before you run, okay? Spend 30 days working on a business plan. Work on a pro forma. Code a bit of a project. I've got a colleague in town, a consultant and angel investor, who says he won't invest in anyone who doesn't take a road trip, right? 3-week road trip. He wants the founding team to be out there on a 3-week road trip. I don't know if it's actually true, he just says it. But it is a pretty good idea, because you're going to get to know someone at a level that you wouldn't otherwise. And this is very, very important. Fourth point under keep your eyes wide open. Don't be afraid to mix business and pleasure. Not sure where that ever got started. Feels to me the idea of keeping your business and your pleasure separate was driven by someone who wanted to have two faces in the world. Or maybe they've never been down the path you're going. Because it's all business in a startup. All you're doing is working. You'd like to work with people you enjoy. That is your pleasure. Don't choose because you like the person, though. Choose because you know their work ethic. And who would you know better than someone you've known for a long time, or a family member? I believe if you navigate that partnership properly, whether it's successful or not, whether it breaks up or not, you can remain friends. In fact, I think you can strengthen it. My business partner and I, excellent friends still. We were not working together, had to shut that company down, but there was no toll on the relationship because we dealt with it well. That's number one. Number two, write it down. Okay? Most people think the reason you have a founder agreement, the number one reason, is to have a contract to enforce if your founder doesn't live up to their end of the bargain. That's the fourth most important reason in my book. Okay? The first is to be sure you talk through all the important issues. A great founder agreement will cover all the major considerations. Maybe not every single thing you need to cover. There may be some unique things, but it'll cover a lot of them. Number two, you want to make sure you've got a present meeting of the minds. That's what the law calls it. You want to make sure that you agree on these issues. Nothing clarifies and crystallizes like putting pen to paper. Number three, I had a law professor who used to call memory a work of art. We all do it, we all misremember, okay? Put it down on paper. If you don't have money for a lawyer, by the way, don't pull something off LegalZoom or Clerky. They're great for filing certificates of incorporation, they're great for some run-of-the-mill stuff, but if you need a custom partnership agreement, you are literally better with the back of a napkin, in my opinion. And just put some metrics on there. Once we reach this amount of revenue, once we raise this amount of money from family and friends, we'll go properly document that. At least you've got something on paper that mirrors what the deal is supposed to be. There is, by the way, a website called Back of a Napkin, I think, .co.nz, that walks you through that. So, number three, commit to the difficult conversations. So your goal in a partnership, like a marriage, is not the absence of conflict. In fact, the absence of conflict may be a sign of things that are very wrong. It probably means one of two things in a business partnership. Probably means either you don't think your co-founder can take honest feedback, or the whole relationship is so tenuous, it's so fragile that you're walking on eggshells and afraid to give it. Okay? Either way, it's a serious problem if not corrected. You can be fierce, not ferocious, or disagree without being disagreeable. So there's a way to deliver this feedback and deliver it in a constructive manner. Let's get over the idea of always being nice. Because nice isn't necessarily the kindest thing. Not to yourself, not to your co-founders. You need to have the difficult conversations. Now, conflict is natural. Resolution, a lot less so. This is what you're signing up for when you take on partners. Very, very important to address these kind of issues head on. There's a quote I love, you can't see his name on there, but from Tim Ferriss. He says, a person's success in life can usually be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations he or she is willing to have. Get used to them, they're part of it. They're the hallmark of a strong business person, they're the hallmark of a mature adult. Number 4, you want to find the right partners? Be the right partner. Partnerships are defined in the gray area. What I mean by that is no matter how much you talk things through, no matter how well you document it, no matter how good your lawyer is putting it on paper, there will be things that you didn't address. There'll be things that were missed. There'll be things you never could have thought of. You need people who have your back. To get that, you need to give that. It requires a large amount of trust to and from you. Be flexible when situations come up that you didn't anticipate. Understand their point of view. Most important thing you can do, I tell clients 90% of business disputes I see, 90% are miscommunication. 10% are bad actors. You're in business with the wrong person. And if you do your homework and you follow some simple rules and you walk before you run, you keep your eyes wide open, you'll avoid that 10% more often than not. The other 90%, it's miscommunication. Communication is a two-way street, right? So when you find yourself thinking, God, this person doesn't get it, take a look. Maybe you don't get it all. So turn that lens inward once in a while. I'm not gonna get that right, am I? So that's it. Keep those 4 things in mind, all right? Keep your eyes wide open. Keep your eyes wide open. Document your deal. Argue constructively. And turn the lens inward to be the right partner, to find the right partners, be the right partner. Tone down that individualistic streak just a hair, and you'll find tremendous success. Woo.
Yeah.
5 minutes Q&A. Does anyone have any questions of Brett?
Shoot. You want it?
I don't know if the mic is going to work.
You guys got the seats?
Okay.
Close to you.
When you are choosing partners, are there certain like archetypes that you would look for, like opposing qualities or like a certain amount, like 2, 3, 4? Is there kind of like a rubric that we could follow?
That's a good question. There's a fellow who works at Capital Factory, or he's a mentor, Gordon Doherty.
Gordon Doherty, yeah.
Doherty, yeah. He's got a great article out. He talks about the 8, I think he used a different term than archetype, but sort of successful entrepreneurial types. I haven't done a tremendous amount of work around that, although I've talked to Gordon. We talked a little bit about putting together some sort of a partnership profiling, thing. But really, there's a few archetypes, and I talk about this in the book I'm putting out called Proofing Your Partnership. There's a few I avoid at all costs, right? So one is quite obvious, the person who has a dying need to be right. Their need to be at least perceived right and to win an argument trumps their ability to actually be successful, right? I mean, they've got to win every argument. I've been in business with people who make things up to win arguments, right? It's not a search for truth. It's a search for validation in the world. They're better off in therapy than business. So that's number one, quite honestly. Beyond that, most of what I spend time is not archetypes, but on values and making sure that you both want to sweat the same amount, you both want to sacrifice the same amount, or all of you, for this. So I can't give you more on that.
You mentioned you make the parallels between marriage and partnership, and I said that for a second, so I may have missed something about this. Yeah. But what are how do you know you're ready for a divorce? What are kind of signs that that maybe this is something that's not salvageable?
Yeah. So keeping in mind what I said about turning that lens inward, right? And making sure that you're doing your own work and you're being brutally honest with yourself about what's going on, but assuming you're doing that as well as you can, or you feel like you're doing that, I feel like after you spend, let's call it 2, 3, 4 sort of nights talking to your significant other about, I just don't know how to make this work kind of thing, you're starting to be on the track. You're starting to be on that track. Now, I don't feel like that happens that much with co-founders compared to, say, employees, right? But usually when I see that happen, when you have that conversation, you think, I just don't know how I can make that work. Almost always, you're past the point. And at that point, what the relationship really needs, be it a co-founder or an employee, is that come to Jesus talk. Where you sit down and you lay it out, you're vulnerable and you're honest, and you set some metrics, some way to try and fix things and get it right. And you set some time limits on it, like you would with an employee, with a co-founder. This is what we need to see to make this work. And at that point, you give it depends on the situation and what the issue is, but a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months. But your point in time when you're up late at night thinking and talking about it, doesn't take many of those nights until something's really wrong.
Have you read the partnership charter? I found it to be a really great resource. I wish I would have applied it for one of my businesses. I purchased a business with another founder, and it would have really saved us a lot of headaches and the need to buy her out at some point. Second, that was a comment. Question is, in terms of when co-founder relationships don't work, are there any stats on, what the source of it is? What causes disagreements? Is it, distribution of work? Is it financial? Any stats on that?
Yeah, I haven't seen any. My gut says that it's distribution of work is a big one. Don't tend to think in your world, in your tech world, that financial issues are necessarily as big as it feels like at least most of the startups I work with. You've got the equity issue, right? Which is one of the reasons VCs generally like companies where the equity is fairly evenly distributed, because that tends to be a source. Whether it's your idea, that's great. Once you're a year or two into this deal, your co-founders are sweating, working just as hard, right? They start to feel like that's very inequitable. So I feel like those situations are ripe for problems. I haven't seen data on it, but I've got to think that they are. But it's one that the venture capitalists at least are pretty keen on and try to avoid. Beyond that, I've got to think that work is a big one. Yeah.
Last question, please.
Yeah.
I know you've touched on a lot of this. I'm curious which values are most important to you.
Personally?
Yes.
Yeah. Far and away, doing interesting things in the world. Doing things I feel I was meant to do, putting some sort of a stamp on things. And I feel like that's really shifted probably, 2 or 3 years ago. And that most of my motivation, quite candidly, throughout my 20s and 30s, was validating myself in the world, right? And I might would have told you something different for sure, but it really was a search to feel maybe better about myself. And that part of that, the drive, was to make more money. Now, I would have told you probably I wanted to really impact things, but that's quite considerably shifted. And I still do believe if you do amazing things, like the money will follow. But definitely, I've done kind of a 180 in the past 3 or 4 years. Probably why I was willing to go into business with this partner I'd known for a long time, but our values had shifted somewhere along the lines.
Can you plug your book?
Yeah, my book is called Partner Proofing Your Partnership, and it should go live. Well, I don't know. We've been trying to get it up. It's the first ebook I've ever had to deal with, so we've been trying to upload it for the past couple of weeks. So just back and forth and formatting and stuff. But I think it's actually going to be on Amazon, if not tonight, maybe tomorrow. So very soon. It's got a lot more, more concrete suggestions. A lot more about what you put into a founder's agreement. A lot more of the sort of the high-level stuff I put in today, which, for people that are probably more sort of tactical, quant-driven, there might be a little bit more meat in that book than hopefully you enjoyed tonight, but there might be a little bit more than that. Then I could get into a talk like this.
If you upload it tonight, we'll send it in the link to everyone for feedback.
Yeah, don't hold me to it. I've been working on it for weeks, but I will let you know when it is.
That's
for sure.
good. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brett. That was really good. I didn't realize so many relationships, co-founder relationships fail, and that's the biggest reason. So, ouch. Hopefully you guys pick the right partners in the future, startups, and generally otherwise too. Cool. So we have our pitches coming up, 5 pitches, and I'm super excited for them. We're gonna have Butler AI, Vote 480, Gardinio, Orange Robot LLC, and did you just the Langford firm? Is that?
No, just
Okay, cool.
documents.
Cool. Sounds good. So I'm gonna call up Butler AI in a bit. Do you wanna play a video before or after, or is them in the middle of it?
In the middle.
Cool. So, if you wanna play the video, you can just click this. It's right here, it'll pop up, and you can play that. In the meantime, we can do that. Cool, I'll just, before I do that, 5 minutes for every pitch, 5 minutes feedback. I'm gonna take the first 30 to 60 seconds of every Q&A session to Q&A part to quickly give some feedback in front of the whole room about how they pitch their idea, their solution, competitive advantage, just so you have an idea of the feedback that other people would be thinking about. And then it's 4 minutes, questions by everyone. So without further ado, Butler AI.
Thanks. Last fall, I was working in my backyard with the family, and we suddenly realized it was way past our dinner time, and we decided to order torches for takeout. So I grabbed my phone, went to their website, started ordering food, and for every item I added to the cart, I had to tap on multiple times to the cart, and then even at checkout, I had to add multiple information and things like that. So I thought to myself, with all this technology around, there should be an easier way to order food. I was in similar situation a couple of months after that, ordering torches again. And this time I said, I'll do it the old way, I'll call the restaurant. And somebody picked up my phone, and the first thing I heard was, can you hold for a minute, please? And that minute turned into 3 minutes. But somebody came back, took my order. That was a pleasant experience. But when I went to the restaurant to pick up the food, they had my name wrong. And also in one item, the tortilla was wrong. So I thought to myself, calling is nice, but can we make it faster and without any mix-ups? Around same time, I had bought my latest gadget, Google Home, and I was really excited about voice as a primary interface, because voice has some very unique characteristics. Voice is composite. Voice is wireless. You don't even have to look at the device. It's not distracting. It's broadcasting. And the most important is that it's natural. You don't train users to use the device, but you train the device to understand the user. And that is going to be a game changing. So with that in mind, I created Butler AI. Butler AI is a voice assistant for Google Home and Amazon Alexa to order food from restaurants like Torchy's Tacos, Fever's Burrito, and Austin Pizza. Butler AI provides a uniform experience to order food across restaurants using these devices. And also it provides a unified platform for restaurants to enable these technologies to improve their customer experience. With Butler AI, you get to access the full menu. You can order any item from the menu, say a large downtown special, and Butler understands that. You can even customize your item, say a large downtown special with jalapenos, and it will make the changes accordingly. Not only that, you can also build up. You can say, and remove mushrooms from it, and it will change your order accordingly. So let's take a quick look at the demo. Alexa, open Butler AI.
Hi, which restaurant you want to order from?
Torchy's Tacos.
Okay. Say your zip code or location name for pickup.
78726.
Okay. From Anderson Mill, what would you like to order? Please say one item at a time.
3 brush fire.
3 brush fire are added. Anything else or you want to check out?
1 trailer park and make it trashy.
1 trailer park with Get It Trashy is added. Anything else or you want to check out?
Check out.
Your order has 3 brush fire and 1 trailer park. Please say yes to continue checkout.
Yes.
Order total due at restaurant is $16.51 and will be ready by 3:22 p.m. at Anderson Mill. Please say yes to confirm this order.
Yes.
Your order has been placed under AVOD. Thanks for ordering your meal with Butler.
Hey YouTube, it's Nate Harris. What's going on? I just want to show a quick little thing here. I actually set up, I got my Alexa right here. I actually have it cancel.
Yeah, cancel. It's YouTube, it just goes to the next video. Yeah.
Screen forward.
Oh. Isn't that amazing? It's gonna be a next experience once you really order your food that way, and you won't go back. Trust me. So opportunity is really big for Butler AI. US restaurants overall has $100 billion yearly revenue from takeouts where voice is the primary interface. Either people call in or use drive-thrus. And Butler AI as a voice assistant can tap into that market and change the way we'll order the food. With that, Butler AI is available on both Google Home and Amazon Alexa with 3 restaurants and 153 locations across 64 cities in 7 states, is available to large population right now. You can go home and start ordering with Butler right now. So let me introduce myself. I'm Awadh Patel, founder, developer, creator of Butler AI. You can follow me on Twitter at Awadh Patel and Butler AI at the Butler AI on Twitter and Facebook. I'm here to meet users to get their feedback on this experience, marketing experts to understand social media marketing and growth hacking, industry advisors to understand more about restaurants businesses, and like-minded investors who share the same vision that we can change everyone's life on earth by developing voice assistants like Butler AI. Thank you.
It's a great name. It's a great name.
Thanks.
I really liked that you started off with a story. It put context around the whole pitch that was going to come up. I think you went into the story a little bit too much and could have cut it off at 30 seconds. The video was another huge strength because I got an idea of how it actually worked. What people will think about, and some of these people will think about too, is it's a $100 billion market opportunity. Why? Because I don't necessarily believe you. And that's good feedback. And how do you make money? And if this is such a big market, why is no one else doing it for you? You don't have to answer these right now, because I'm going to give them to Brett, and then people can ask questions. But I'll give this to you so you have these things to think about for next time.
Sure.
Yeah, just to tag on to the comment about the addressable market, I feel like I think what you said is that that's 100 billion is the amount of food that's ordered by voice through takeout or from home?
Yeah, so there is a source on the link. If you look at the presentation, the total $210 billion of food is eaten off premise. Out of that, it includes delivery and catering. But the majority of this is takeout, where people either take it out, they order over phone, or they do the drive-thru. Drive-thru is still a huge part of it.
Yeah, and also not a part that you're impacting, right?
It can potentially do, because these devices, it can be deployed anywhere. This is not going to be about these 2 devices. These platforms are already available for people to develop in their own device, like you can put it in Raspberry Pi. Both of these have SDKs available, and restaurants will want them because it's scalable. These type of platforms are not, you don't need a human at the end of it to take the order. So these are inherently scalable to solve the problem of fast. Biggest problem calling in is that yes, there's only few people who can take the phone order.
Okay.
And so they solve that problem.
Yeah, I understand. It feels like two different markets. I get that you can impact it, but I think that was maybe the comment is it feels like a big number that's pulled out. It's really not probably your addressable market or the share of what you're going to take of that market, right? And so that goes to the point about a little bit about financials and how you make money. Mm-hmm. The model would be helpful. And then I didn't hear that no one else is doing it. So that's my big question is I see a lot of people playing in this space. I haven't seen anyone in food, but we see how many delivery apps there are in Austin, right? And so I'm seeing so many people trying to get into Alexa and the voice control. So touching on that would be useful.
Okay, sure, thanks.
Questions?
Yeah, actually, related to what he was just asking, like how is this differentiated from, I think right now I can order an Uber on my Alexa, or I can order food from a local restaurant. Like how is, and they'll deliver it to me oftentimes,
yes.
I think like Pizza Hut app or something. So how is this meaningfully distinguishable from that technology?
Sure, so especially for food ordering, you either have to pre-configure order online into, say for Pizza Hut and Domino's, you can pre-configure and then select from that. You cannot get to access the full menu or you get to choose at that time. With Butler AI, you don't have to configure anything. You just start talking to it and it will understand what you are ordering. So that's the main differentiating factor with other apps that are available. It's not that others are not doing it. Yes, they want to do it. They are trying, Grubhub is trying to actively support this thing. I started this journey a few months back just to say, hey, can I order my favorite torches? And so that I grew it to add more restaurants to say, okay, this concept is really interesting. I can solve some really interesting problems with food ordering per se. Delivery as a component can be added as in third party. I can hook it up with Postmates or any other services like Favor to say, hey, do you want it delivered? And yes, you can get the delivery done. So there are some key components, but as in just a single founder developer right now, I'm trying to add more awareness that, hey, something like this exists that can help you with ordering food.
Time's up. I'm sorry, you can talk to me after. Thank you.
Thank you.
My writing is terrible, so if that's the case, let me know. All right, perfect. So a way that I would talk about Butler AI is you define the problem, and then you figure out where the customer segment, and you look at how many people are using something similar like Alexa, and that's how you start figuring out which people are on that platform and which people would pay for it going down the line. Number 2, you don't have any videos, correct?
No.
Awesome. Vault 480s. I don't get what you guys do, but it's a great name.
So, my name is Bhavnish Patel. Unfortunately, I don't have anything as sexy as Butler AI. And by the way, we're not related. Patel just happened to be the coincidence here. Thank you. You're gonna be keeping time, right? So,
yeah.
So Vault 480. Before I jump into the company, a little bit of background on myself. As I mentioned, my name is Bhavnish Patel. I worked for a company called Rockwell Automation previously. May not be a name that many of you are familiar with. Rockwell provides industrial automation to manufacturers. So think about all of the hardware and software that makes the robots and machines within a manufacturing facility run. Rockwell provides all of those brains, essentially. And while I was with Rockwell for those 15 years, I had a bunch of different roles. I was in global sales, managed a large global account. Most recently, I managed their global support services, and that's where the idea for my company was born. And again, just maybe a little bit. I like the idea of a little personal story of before jumping into the actual company. So when I was with Rockwell and I managed the large global account, it was Kraft Foods, and they were one of Rockwell's largest customers. As one of the largest customers, they may not have had the highest level support contract in place, but when they said jump, we jumped. I mean, I think anybody here in business knows when your largest customer says do something, you're going to do it. And when I transitioned to support services business, managing the entire support portfolio, what I saw was we had a lot of small to medium-sized customers that didn't get that same attention. They may have bought the highest level support contract from a company like Rockwell, which, by the way, in Rockwell's case was a 4-hour SLA, but we weren't able to, it's 4 hours is the best we can do. And think about this. And actually, I'll come to this in a second. So that's essentially where the idea was born. there's this opportunity there where there's these small to medium-sized manufacturers that don't necessarily get the level of service that maybe a larger manufacturer might get. A little bit about myself, and I put this up front partly because of the speaker today and one of my asks as part of this presentation. So I'm the CEO and founder. I am looking for some co-founders, somebody that can complement some of my skill sets, so somebody with a technical background potentially, as well as somebody with maybe a B2B marketing, digital marketing expertise. And then I do have some help currently with a marketing analyst that's helping me set up my CRM and a few other things. And I've had some help from the UT MBA program as well. A couple of students there helping me out with some market research. So the problem, as I mentioned, so if you look at the consumer world, you have things like Butler AI, where you can get onto Alexa, say something, it does something, you're good, and you have food delivered to your door. In manufacturing, it's not that simple. So you think about a manufacturing plant. Let's say you're making Hershey's chocolate kisses. That's my wife's favorite. So Hershey's chocolate kisses. If that machine making that chocolate fails, and the next step is you can't solve it in-house. So typically a maintenance company will have some staff in-house. If they can't solve this in-house, they're going to go to an outside vendor. If they haven't done business with that outside vendor, there's going to be a whole bunch of 50-page legal document, keeping lawyers in business, but a 50-page legal document say, these are the terms and conditions, here's all the things we need to agree upon before you can even enter the site. The challenge with that, though, is that Hershey's Kiss machine is probably making something, and when it goes down, it's about $100,000 an hour in lost production downtime. So all of those delays add up. And beyond that, when you call that vendor to come in and help you, there's no guarantee that they're going to be available. These are typically engineering resources that are deployed on projects. They're not necessarily going to be available readily. And so that you go through all of these steps, and the net result is you may or may not be able to get somebody within the time that you want. So the problem again, from a customer's perspective, there's this idea of this responsiveness. There's a demand for that responsiveness given the high cost of downtime. There's no Angie's List, there's no Yelp, there's no review system. So even that vendor that you call up, there's no guarantee that that person coming on site is going to have the skill sets required. And then the complexity. These are fairly complex systems that you're trying to troubleshoot. On the service provider side, the people answering the call, the vendors, generally they're engineering companies, small to medium-sized engineering companies, 10 to 50 people, typically don't have dedicated sales resources. And as a project-based company, they sometimes don't have that next job coming in, and so they have a challenge there. Two is speed. Getting that 50-page document from a customer is the worst thing they can do, because as an engineer, they don't want to split through a 50-page document and take exception to a whole bunch of things, so there's an issue there. And third is resources. The most challenging part of their business is having a billable engineer sit on the bench and not being able to actually have them build out. How am I doing on time?
You got 10 seconds.
Oh, 10 seconds. All right, so my solution is essentially Uberizing industrial services and being able to connect manufacturers to service providers on demand. All right, that was, I apologize.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for, as I mentioned, co-founders. I'm looking for some funding, so I've self-funded the MVP, and the MVP will be done in July. In order for me to execute the sales and marketing step, which is next, I need some funding to do that.
Cool, thank you, thank you. You don't need a story because of your experience, the fact that you're comfortable on stage. You could put one in, but it took too long to get to the problem, and I only got what you did until the last 10 sequence.
I kind of ad hoc that one there.
Yeah, that's okay, but next time just cut the story.
Okay.
The callback was good. Your interview source was really, when you said this is the problem and you had it listed,
yeah.
I've interviewed 30 people for this. That was really powerful. Yeah, I didn't get to hear most of your bits, so I can't give a lot of feedback, but and don't use Uberizing, please.
Yeah.
Don't say that.
Uber with better ethics.
Everyone has better ethics than Uber.
I thought you did a great job. I agree that you took a little bit longer to get to the problem than you probably could have. But the main thing that comes to my mind is just how challenging this is. I mean, it's such a big idea, and I immediately believe and understand the extent of the problem, but some evidence of your ability to actually pull this thing off. So I get it, you're at the stage where you've just built an MVP, so traction you're probably a little bit light on, but I don't know, my mind's going to look for like beta customer, some ability, you've done this, like how do you pull this? Markets are inherently difficult, right? I mean, two-sided beasts, and then you're selling into like, I've done it before in B2B stuff, you're selling into old relationships and those die hard, so just feel like something along those lines to give me some confidence that this thing has any ability to have legs.
Sure.
No question there's the problem.
So I think you brought up some really good points. So with regard to marketplace, like any marketplace, you need to have both ends of that equation. So as part of my marketing strategy, I'm focusing on a very small area to start with. So for example, I'm starting with California, small to medium-sized manufacturers in food and bev space. For a couple of reasons. Food and bev, there's a low barrier to entry to get into food and bev plants relative to, say, oil and gas or car manufacturing. It's a heavy industry. California, because there's that high density of those target customers in that space. You have a lot of agriculture there, a lot of food processing, and so target-rich environment. And then the third piece is, and I didn't get to this, is I have some strategic advisors, one of which is on the supplier side, a CEO of a service provider, large service provider in California. So I'll be able to immediately be able to turn this on with a ready, available, staff of resources.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
Questions? Do you need a mic?
I'll just shout.
Sure, shout.
I used to work for a company that used Rockwell automation products, and from our perspective, the legal issues were not insignificant because our equipment could kill people if you use it wrong. So we would have concerns with, some random person being assigned to remote into our assets and reprogram them. How would you deal with that?
So I'm not suggesting that this would be done remotely. So you would actually be able to identify somebody through the app, somebody that's local to your facility. And then in order for that service provider to be part of this marketplace, they would have to go through some pre-qualification steps. First off would be agreeing to my company's terms and conditions. There would be legal requirements to have insurance and some of those basic things to to do business in a B2B scenario. The other part of this is, and what's missing in the industry, is transparency into the qualifications of those resources. So today, what sometimes happens is you have a maintenance person at a plant that says, you know what, I got this entrepreneurial bug and I want to go start my own business, hangs up a shingle and has their own company as a service provider. But there's no, from a manufacturer's perspective, if that person goes to a facility, there's no transparency as to, does this person have any previous customers that have provided some ratings or some certifications and qualifications. It's essentially word of mouth saying, I can do this. And what I'm bringing to the table is that review system. So after every job, the customer says, yes, this person's capable or that they're not capable. So you get some sort of closed loop feedback through that process.
That was the only question we had time for. I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you very much.
We have to talk afterwards though. Thank you.
So one piece of feedback is, since you have industry experience, you don't have to explain a lot to people. You say, this is the problem, this is the solution, and you don't have to explain or go answer for 90 seconds. A quick 5-sentence answer would be suffice. Sufficient. Yes. Roman talked to me 3 weeks ago about pitching, and now he is. Get stuff done. Good.
Yeah, I'm happy about it. Wait. Well, I'm gonna have to apologize in advance. My allergies decided to act up today, so you're gonna hear me sound a little sickly. Hope you don't mind. Do you have a clicker?
Yes, I do have a clicker, and I will give it to you. It's right here if you want it. Cool. Full screen. Can you test that real quick?
Sure. It clicks.
It clicks.
Huh. Are we cool when you're ready?
You're good to go.
All right. Hey everybody, I'm Roman Gonzalez. I'm the founder of Gardenio, and we are helping create the next generation of gardeners. Cool. So maybe you had the experience that I did trying to start a garden at any point in your life, trying to grow anything. And if you have, then you know that starting a garden is archaically difficult. So right now the experience is somebody tells you to go read a book, or you go into a nursery, or they tell you to go into a nursery and talk to somebody, you get their attention, and then they tell you something, and you're like, why? Or they tell you to Google it. Seems like an easy problem. The information and the community right now are just very tribal, right? It's very fragmented and it exists in people's heads. And so the other problem that I saw in all this is that, well, part of the reason that I want to garden is that I give a shit. And I know that people give a shit about sustainability, about local food, about knowing where my food comes from. So all of this coalesced into Gardenio, where we use technology to help you design, start, and grow an edible organic garden. Cool, so design. So a lot of people don't know this. There's a lot of logic that goes into starting a garden, enemy plants and companion planting, time of year, what is next to each other. We take all that logic, 100,000 years of best practices in gardening. We organize it, and you just go to growgardenio.com, you put in your address, a little bit about your environment, and we can give you with high confidence suggestions on what to grow in the next 30 days. Also these starter packs, right? You got a vegetable pack, you got an herb pack, all these things. So let me help you start it. So you get, oh geez. To help you start it, we send you this big old nice box. You can think like the Plated or the Blue Apron of this kind of industry, and we give you everything you need to be able to start this. And so this is very clear instructions, for you to get started. Then we have the actual grow, the third part of this. So this is the longest process, but the idea is gardening is an experience that we supplement with our technology. So we have two parts to this. The first part is that we allow you to have, when you download the app, you have everything of yours preloaded, your garden, and it gives you recommendations how to take care of it in your location. It's highly contextual. In addition to that, we realize that data is not the only thing that makes a garden successful. There's this very deep human part of it. And so we give you this community to interact with. So this is where you can post things like, hey, this basil's all black and crumbly, what's going on here? Somebody else in the community who's been gardening for years can tell you, oh, you have this disease, this is how you can help that. So we take both of these components to be able to offer you this community as well as all this data. There you go. But all of this really ends in this, right? There's technology, but we're very aware that there's an experience in the world, that we are consumed by technology, and we're trying to use technology to get us away from it, to get us playing in the dirt, and ultimately to end up here with our friends and our family and cooking things that we've made and enjoying real, human, deep, meaningful experiences. But we got to make money, and so we do. And in a lot of ways, I'm going to go over the primary ones. So there's obviously the sale of soil, starter kits, plants, all these things. Most of the equipment in home gardening is made through equipment, so we're keenly aware of that. In addition, we have these monthly subscription packages where we can send you things to take care and catalyze your garden. Things like compost tea, like fertilizer. We can give you samples of organic products. In addition, we can do things like, it's going to rain outside, so we send you a push notification and say, hey, it's going to rain, you're going to want to bring your plants inside, or hey, buy this plant cover. There's a bunch of adjacent markets. There's things we know. There's things like we know when you're going to harvest, so we can recommend what you need to get the soil in good condition. And lastly, we believe that advertising to the community over time, organizing this very specific market with adjacent interests is going to be the long play, keeping the community happy. So $36.1 billion is the gardening lawn-related spending in 2015. It's a large market. Edible gardening is a portion of that, $3.6 billion. It is the most active. And popular activity within that. 75% of U.S. households engage in some kind of gardening activity, and this is the one that's really interesting to me. That 80% of the new gardeners are millennials, while the highest spending market, baby boomers, there's less of them now. So we spent last year being really bad at gardening and trying to get better. I'm still a bad gardener, but I'm getting much better. This year we worked on understanding, we did some market research, went to a lot of community groups and got the brand and the product kind of down, that design. But we're looking to actually build it. We have people working on tech, but we don't have anybody committed at the moment. So we're doing work to be able to help with that. And so we're looking for people who really care about what we're trying to do, this larger mission and aligning with those values. We need a technical co-founder, again, somebody who gives a shit about the same things we do. Seed funding, which is a wonderful pun, and advisors, particularly in supply chain management. We source from local nurseries and wholesale nurseries to cut down on traveling, which is the sustainable way to do it. And so we need to be able to manage that a lot better than what we have now. We don't have that expertise. Me, I have 6 years experience in marketing and media production, used to be in film. I was a marketing director for a small startup that got acquired by Salesforce. Spent the last 4 years in experience design, degree in philosophy from Brown University, which makes it useless. And we have, in the broad experience there, my co-founder, Vivek Venkatraman, is a designer at Airbnb, previously of Nook and PayPal. I also happened to be in his wedding party a month ago. We're best friends. And so that is Gardenia. We hope that you grow with us. Thank you.
That was a great pitch, and also really, really pretty.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank Vivek, and no, just thank me. I did all.
Okay. The only piece of feedback is it seems like if you take away the pretty slides and the fact that you're selling something, it's an e-commerce store, but your strength is community.
Sure.
And the fact that, in your words, you give a shit.
Yeah.
So maybe emphasize down the line more about how you will get to those first 100 people who really love what you do, and how that's going to be a strength going on. Because maybe this won't have 100,000 users.
Yeah.
It could have 50,000, which pay every month.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I enjoyed the pitch. I think you're very natural. It was funny. Your passion came through. I think you did a really, really good job. Sickness and all. A little bit on competition would be helpful. I always gravitate towards that, but I think you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been answering any of those related questions too, if you guys have them.
Oh, questions?
Heidi?
What is your competition like?
Yeah, so there's not much. So there are people that sell plants online. There's like seed saving where you can buy seeds online. You can already do that. So I say we're not really an e-commerce plant store. You can buy plants online. That's boring. We are managing the experience of starting a garden, and so our technology supplements that. It entails being able to buy online, but we're sourcing from local nurseries and wholesalers. So there's one called like Garden Compass. So you can go on and it's like a very bad UX to be able to like find and add a plant, and it gives you some high-level information on how to take care of it. No community component, very dry. Part of what we're doing here is like making it a lifestyle brand to be a gardener, right? Like it is something that it means to care about this and to do this. So yeah, the Garden Compass is the closest that it comes, and other online retailers like that. Home Depot and Lowe's are the biggest big box competition.
Have you heard of a sustainable food center?
Yeah. I did a gardening class of theirs. I pitched the idea to 16 people and 10 signed up to learn more. So yeah.
Okay. Because they kind of help people, I guess, for starting gardening stuff too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like IRL ways that people will learn about this stuff. I went to a grafting class. That's how I've been learning now. It's expensive. It's time consuming, but I also think it's important. Down the line, I'd love to be able to see those people not as competition, but as partners, and be able to offer the ability to sort of connect people to those opportunities. The thing I love about the gardening community is everybody's kind of in it for the larger goal of more people gardening and being a part of this lifestyle. Yes, ma'am?
Are you doing anything with container gardening and urban gardeners? Because I think that's an area that really needs more attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now we are supporting indoor and outdoor gardening. So whether that is pots and container gardening, or raised beds, things like that. I have a raised bed myself, but there is sort of the market of these things, like IKEA sells them. You can like grow basil indoors that puts it under this nice light kind of thing. That is not of immediate interest to me. However, I think that, again, part of Gardenia supporting the mission is that we offer connections to things like that, right? We take a bit off the top when we sell that through our channels.
Quick question, what's IRL?
Oh, that's in real life. That's how. Yes.
Lost on us. Yeah.
It's business jargon. It's the millennial business jargon. Anything else? Right on.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh no! It's like that movie where you can't cross this wall.
Yeah, like, ugh. Sorry about that, everyone. Who's next?
Is Scott White?
Scott White is next. How's it going, Scott?
Good. Good.
There you go. All right, you hear me okay?
Here's the clicker.
Oh, it's important.
Side. The one on the side. Yeah, so this is forward and that's back.
Learn which way is forward. Important. All right, I'm Scott White. I'm one of the co-founders of Drive Better, where we're building safer driving habits one driver at a time. So how many of you here have kids that are driving age or going to be soon? Almost nobody. 2 people. Wow, this is not my demographic. Let's just leave now. So I guess most of you then won't know any of these stats. So it turns out driving's obviously a big deal when your kids turn driving age. It's 2 things. It's dangerous and it's expensive. It's also very important for your kids, especially if you live in a place like Texas where public transportation sucks, right? You basically have to be able to have a job to get to school, be able to do anything. You need to be able to drive. So there's a lot of stats that if you look at them, they're kind of scary if your kid's starting to drive. The biggest one is that today in the U.S., 6 teenagers probably died, and 600 of them ended up in the emergency room. So that's by far the leading cause of death for teenagers. So more than drugs, murders, gangs, any of those kind of things you hear about, driving's more dangerous than all of them. So with that bright news, we'll go to something else. So we're trying to build a solution. So it's a big problem. There's a lot of people actually working in this space. Car manufacturers obviously spending a lot of money to make cars safer. There's other guys that are trying to make it so you don't have to drive your car anymore. Those problems, those solutions actually are all far out in the future. Automated cars, despite the hype, it's going to be a long time before the 250 million cars in the US are replaced with automated cars. And your 16-year-old probably isn't going to get a $100,000 Tesla to drive right when they turn 16. So we're looking at providing an education system built into an app with an in-car app that's available now. So what our system does is it measures your driving performance and it provides feedback on how you're doing. So just talk a little bit about the business. The market size is fairly large. It's not huge like billions and billions of people, but only in the US there's roughly 3 million 16-year-old drivers. Obviously you get 3 million new ones every year as they turn that age. The problem is important to parents. So we've done a fair amount of validation. So 80% of parents are concerned or very concerned about safety. And if you look at that detail, this is the most thing, they're the most concerned about this. So more than drugs, alcohol, sex. All of those are concerns less than driving safety. So finally, on our side, we've done work on the technology piece. We've actually validated our technology. We have over 2,800 hours of driving time already recorded into our system. So we've done a fair amount of work. We've built out the app. We have hardware available. So kind of quickly going to the business model, it's very straightforward. We charge money for it. There's no advertising or any kind of other, trying to sell the data. We have a one-time fee for the device and then a small monthly fee to pay for the data and ongoing service. If you look at just 1% of that market, of the earlier market we talked about, that's $4 million in recurring revenue. So the market exists, even at 1%, it's enough to sustain the business. Right now we're working a direct sales model with an online store, trying to get enough data to validate the product and the rest of the data on the market pricing, basically, how much it takes to sell it directly. Our next step is we're looking at several other ways to distribute the proper product through partnerships, but we're trying to get all the way done with the product first before we start exploring those. And finally, just a little bit about the team. So we just talked about kind of partnerships earlier. So my business partner Gary's here, also in the front row, hiding. Didn't want to come talk. We've actually worked together for a long time, I think 7 years or so at previous places. We've been working on this product for a year. We actually just celebrated a year not too long ago. So we both have technical backgrounds. I actually have an aerospace engineering degree, been building products on the technical side and on the product management side for quite a while. Gary's been building stuff for a long time as well. And my wife is actually helping with operations because she thinks I'm not organized enough to do it. So she's making me better at it. And I think, so I guess the most important slide, what we're looking for tonight. So far the company is bootstrapped, all sort of personal money, and we do consulting on the side and whatever else we have to do to make things work. So right now we're starting to look at raising money. So we're looking at 100K, which will help us get through next steps of product development and also explore the marketing techniques in a much larger scale. So now we're kind of running ads at very small scales with little bits of money. And so we need to be able to build up and do that a little faster. And we're also looking for some help on the kind of personal side. So we're looking for driving school or an instructor experience. So if you happen to work at a driving school or know somebody who does, I'd like to talk to those kind of people. And if you happen to have kids or want to figure out how good a driver you are, we're looking for early adopters for feedback. And I generated a coupon code so you can get the hardware for free tonight. So if you use CoFound, you can go to our site, Drive Better, and get the hardware for free and try it out. Our key milestones, so we have the Apple, has been on the store for a little while, I think a month or two, and the Android app is...
I'm sorry, Scott.
Time's up?
Time's up.
Well, that was the last slide.
Oh, look at that.
Perfect.
I got a question though.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm
So
chilling.
why are you concentrating on only
16 years old, like you could go to Florida and sell it to like all those old people that don't know how to drive.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good question. There's actually many smaller markets. The teen driver is the most addressable. There's a whole nother market that's probably, the estimates I have is about 20% is basically elderly. And so if you hit it just right, you get people with 16-year-olds and 80-year-old parents. So then you can kind of sell to the same customer with different users. We haven't gotten that far in terms of the marketing piece, right? But there are other market segments out there.
I think this is a really interesting idea, and I like that you dovetailed on a couple things that I talked about, like 90% of drivers think they're in the top 10%, and then working with the people you know, like your wife. So thank you. We should have partnered up on this. I think it's a really interesting idea. I didn't really follow the 2,800 hours, though. Are you saying that data has been collected and that validates the technology?
So that's
basically
personal,
works to define whether or not people are driving well?
That's in our system. So that's not, obviously that's not a big number if you're GM or something, but we validated that in different cars, our device, through our system. So it's sort of a metric to show that we didn't start yesterday.
But that you've collected the hours, or that you've validated that the system can feed back whether or not the driving is...
It's more the collected the data, because it's really hard actually with, there's so many different types of cars and driving styles and driving places. You need a lot of data to try to figure out what's good. I mean, a person can tell, you can ride with a bad driver, and you know, but we needed a lot of data to help indicate that, I guess. So that was sort of the best number I could find. That's sort of maybe not very easy to explain apparently, but just to kind of show what that we've been working on it for a while.
But the system is feeding back that the driving is good, bad, needs
yeah,
work,
I mean, for the most part, we measure a variety of things. We measure if you brake too hard, you drive too fast, you swerve. Yeah, and so we've collected enough data to sort of normalize if that's good or bad. Right.
We can show you what the driving data looks like.
Yeah. Yes, we actually have the app. So if you want to talk to us after, we can
Cool.
show you
Also,
that.
just one piece of feedback I would have is, if you could you say it's a problem.
Yeah.
And I believe you. You talk about your solution, and I believe it works. And you talk about the market size. So what I would like to know is how much money is being spent to solve this problem right now, and why would people stop paying? Why would parents stop paying those people, those platforms, and come to you?
Yeah.
Why are you better?
Okay.
So that you can answer that right now, or.
Well, so actually the interesting thing about this market is you're probably not going to sell to existing users because they're going to buy it for their next kid. So you buy it for Johnny when he's 16, you're going to stop using it probably when he's 18 or so, and so you're really aiming at Johnny's younger brother or the neighbor's kid, right? So it's a market that's sort of continually refreshing, which is good and bad. Our business model is set up so that we have the customer acquisition cost built in, so that we know we have to always be getting new customers. So that helps, man.
Question on the markets. I get that it's a consumer play right now.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, have you looked at the business play from the standpoint of business drivers and being able to monitor? I mean, that seems to be something that is a problem for businesses when they look at insurance costs.
Yeah, business fleet managers is a very crowded market. So we haven't messed with it now. Yeah, so there's some details, but there's a lot of players in business market. One of the differences, most of those are very detailed for kind of commercial trucking. Our app, in terms of UI and everything, is really built more for our market, to try to more, I guess, gamify, to use a overused term. So we have not messed with commercial trucking very much.
So I kind of have a comment and then a question. So for physical products like this, I really like, sort of as a minimum viable product, just throwing up a landing page with the product and then having people being able to click through, put in all their information, and then when they get to the checkout page, you say, oh, sorry, we're still building this, but we'll let you know as soon as it's done. You select their email, and then you sort of can email them later, and then you can actually get feedback from them, right? That's sort of like a minimum viable product for a physical product like this. So you mentioned that you had been doing some ads. I was wondering, what is the conversion rate, or have you been able to gain some customers through those ads, and what channels are working for you?
So for the most part, we focused on Facebook ads. We've figured out a couple things. For one thing, it's order of magnitude cheaper to target moms versus dads. Yeah, so we've gotten some click-throughs. We have some beta users. We have we have a little bit of stuff. We had a page up before when it didn't exist. In general, we get very little traffic though without paying to get people there. It's a hard business. There's also a lot of competition in terms of driving. There's a lot of driving schools and other stuff that make, for example, Google AdWords is very expensive because of defensive driving, and those other kinds of markets pay for the same keywords. So yes.
That was last question. I'm sorry, 5 minutes up. I know. It's a tough life. Thank you, Scott. Who is Dynamic Agreement? Sweet. Pick and choose. Yes, sir. Press the right. Okay. Did it work? Okay. Cool.
My name is Randy Langford, and I'm a recovering lawyer. Just want to make that clear right here today. I'm also the founder of a concept, an idea that is a dynamic agreement. And dynamic agreement is an application that facilitates the creative, collaborative, and co-creation of agreement. Now, let me ask you this. Who here has ever entered into an agreement? It could just be a handshake deal. Who here has taken one of those kinds of agreements and maybe put it in writing of some sort and signed off on it? Okay, cool. And I suspect that, when you put it in writing, it was probably, maybe it was done by a lawyer, or maybe used to do-it-yourself contract creation application online. Who here has had one of those agreements go south on you? There's some kind of breach that somebody claimed. Okay. Well, if you're like most folks, your agreement probably looks something like this. Okay. It had, you provided like a start date, an end date, and some consideration, whatever the money was, and maybe the purpose of the agreement, and the names of the parties, and a lawyer or the do-it-yourself app filled in all the rest with a bunch of legalese. This kind of agreement is what I would call a static agreement. It's a picture of the of the condition of the parties at the time that they put their signatures on that agreement. And any kind of change that substantially affects that information that you put on there, that you entered, could be considered a breach. And these kinds of agreements, if there's a breach, usually the only way that that can be dealt with is through some kind of adversarial process, litigation, arbitration, something like that. Well, there's a reason why that's the case. It's because, you know, we lawyers have been trained to fight. That's what we do. We approach things adversarially. So if you read one of those agreements, the language sets up a posturing for the parties to be adversaries in anticipation of that breach that is probably going to happen. Dynamic agreement has a different approach. Because a static agreement, like we talked about, focuses on the transaction, just that information you put in, and it doesn't really treat the parties as anything of any more importance than the start date or the consideration. Dynamic agreement approaches agreement saying, no, that this is actually about a relationship, like Brett was talking about. And the transaction, the agreement, is a product of the relationship. So it actually enters into it by saying that the agreement is a product of the relationship, and the values and the principles and the motivation of the parties is important, and that there is absolutely going to be change and challenges and conflict that is going to occur during the course of this relationship. And it does all of that while simultaneously protecting the legal rights of the parties. Now let's talk a little bit about how all this occurs. The dynamic agreement process starts off with the parties individually answering open-ended questions, basically being asked to tell stories. And in telling those stories, they reveal what values are important to them, what principles are important to them. What's the motivation for the purpose of this agreement through that? And if they are able to then come together and agree that they share values, principles, and motivation that's acceptable for the purpose of the agreement, this application can help them form what's called a foundation statement, which is a preamble to the actual contract that we looked at a while ago. And all of the foundation sets out is a common vision for the purpose of this agreement, a common mission. It may express the common values, something that the parties can come back to whenever change and challenges and conflict arise. Because unlike a static agreement that is operating off of a fiction that change doesn't occur, we all human beings here know that change is a constant. And sometimes it's about change that occurs that we have no control over. And it might actually affect the purpose of the agreement. So the change, challenges, and conflict section of a dynamic agreement gives a process where people can actually have a dialogue about that and try to maintain the agreement and maintain the purpose of the agreement. It does that.
Time's up, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm gonna shut up and let Brett talk, but the only question I had that I was thinking about was, is this a tech, software, a platform, a book, a course? And that is something you could later clarify in the next pitch. Okay.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this, and I want to talk to you more about it. And it dovetails a little bit with something I'm doing in the marriage space. It's super interesting, but I find myself wondering if this is a product or a service or really it's a worldview. You know, it's like a philosophy, and I just think, how do you bring this to market? So from a sort of tangible standpoint, if you talk to us a little bit about what you're focusing in on, I think it would be great, by the way, in the partnership context. And I talked about back of a napkin, but I think this is awesome.
Yeah.
And getting some of this down on paper, but I just again kind of come around to like who is the market here, and what are you starting with, and how do you roll something like this out?
Well, my thoughts on that are the market would be folks who, like many of these people, have been involved in contracts and have been involved in a breach of contract matter, because the according to the latest figures, just the mean cost of a breach of contract case is about $90,000. And usually people find out the values and principles that the other person upholds at the time of a breach, not before they enter into the contract. And this is a process whereby they can reveal those things to one another and see if they're a good match for the purpose of this agreement, the compatibility. And so the ABA has just recently endorsed and approved of this approach to contracts. And it's a burgeoning area in transactional law. And the technology is available, according to people I've spoken with, to actually develop an app that can glean information from these open-ended responses to questions and help people form these foundation statements. And then the part of this that I went too long and wasn't able to get to is there would be attorneys that would be trained and certified in this process that would also be available to help people through if they run into any type of difficulties when they're trying to reach this agreement.
What is the process called?
Dynamic agreement.
No, not what is your company called that the ABA endorsed?
It's this relational approach. It's been called lots of different things: conscious contracts, other things. It's the latest one, discovering agreement. People have used it that way, but the process has been approved by the ABA.
Questions?
What's the most common type of contract you think this would replace?
Well, I think that they probably, if it's just a straight up transaction, exchange money and the deal is done and people walk away, this wouldn't be necessarily as beneficial. But contracts that are going to be the product of an ongoing relationship of some kind, like a partnership or the owner finance sale of a business or something like that, where people are going to maintain a relationship during the course of the agreement, that's where it'd be the most applicable, I believe. Yes.
What about rental contracts? Could you perceive it working with rental contracts?
It can, and in those things, obviously there's like let's just say a lease agreement on a piece of property where you'd have the standard lease agreement. You can have one of these as an addendum to that, as an attachment, an exhibit, where the people agree that if there's something comes up, they're at least going to engage this process to try to resolve that before they start calling lawyers.
So is this like self-mediation in a way? Would you describe it as that?
Well, not necessarily, because mediation is still an adversarial process, and I'm a mediator. This, however, uses a process of facilitated dialogue that maintains this collaborative, co-creative approach. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, real quick, I guess I'm stuck in, there's still a contract that has static components that's at the foundation of this dynamic agreement, but the dynamic agreement provides some level of arbitration wiggle room for the people who come together when it feels like a breach to have a better chance of arbitration, but there's still potentially the breach. It's not providing some legal loophole for wiggle room for somebody to get out of breach of contract.
So there's a section of this that wasn't used in the slide called the statement of agreement, which would be what amounted to the ordinary contract that you're aware of. The dynamic agreement, however, is a binding contract from start to finish, and the difference is that it's, rather than setting the parties up as adversaries, it sets them up as collaborative partners.
So it's more to get the cohesion before the agreement's signed, kind of like what he was discussing earlier, know your partner.
Know your partner, and then, just like Brett was talking about, how to have those conversations. Because we can have conversations that result in us trying to convince the other person of our point of view, or we can have conversations that involve us trying to understand the other person's point of view.
Thank you.
I believe that was it for May's edition of the CoFounder Meetup. Thank you all. I'm going to stay away from that, please. Thank you all for being here. Grab some beer, connect. I know you have more questions from the presenters because I cut him off after, but that's how we got to do that, so we're finish up at 8:40. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Also, quick, can you give me some feedback on what you would like to see about pitch feedback? Do you want feedback like this? Do you want to talk before? What works better for you? So let me know right now, or find me at Moby at Austin Fire Show, because I don't get paid for this. It doesn't really matter to me, but I want this to add as much value as possible. So thank you, and have a good night. And thank you, Brett.
Yeah, so, no, I usually really want to make not having a run of rookies right now in doubt, and I think that's pretty awesome. So, like, once I do it, I would love to have you. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you. Oh, sweet. Yeah. Have you ever called? This is great. No, I don't do it, but this is really cool. Nice. Yeah, good to get behind this. Sweet. Yeah, I like it. All right. Yeah, likewise. Introduce myself.
How's it going?
Moby, nice to meet you. Great suit. Thank you. It was my first time out today. Also, I'm really impressed by how everything was organized. It's very, very cool. How often do y'all meet? So much about once a month. Once a month? Okay, awesome. And y'all always meet at this location? We always meet at this location. And then I walked in a little bit late, something about paying. What was
So you can get a membership, you can pay us $12 a month, it's a verified membership. You get this, you get video recordings, it's pitch, and you get into Check Soccer, which is the membership. So if you're interested, you can definitely do that. We also offer free membership, you can get the website.
So I kind of do
just go to the tech map and Johan, I'll introduce you, but Johan can talk to you about that. Yeah. Are you looking to pitch?
No, not at all. It's actually, I do financial planning, so I'm always looking for
we signed this thing and forget
how to have innovative ways to invest. But it's really cool to see so many great pitches all the time in some of the podcasts. Yeah, very well run event. I just want to let you know.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Term I've thrown around is cooperation, which maybe doesn't work exactly in this, because I think it's funny that the bars should represent this procedure. I guess that's kind of right. It's like, what if we all just say, I just said, it's like, you should be thinking this, you should be thinking that. You know, this is interesting. Wherever you want. Yeah, that's interesting. You remind me for a job, I'm working on a startup. Now I have a second idea. The first one, but like I learned so like I went from someone playing like a $5 million music idea.
Oh, no,
Right now, we are years from now. That's right.
That was a great pitch, by the way. Yeah, thanks. Absolutely, yeah. I don't know if you're going to start a book or a course or whatever. I'm writing a book, but I'm
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. Coming out here and seeing other stuff. Take it out. Yeah. Sounds good. Appreciate it. Of course.
Because also it's rare that like two people came up one time. I'll wait for 2 more minutes. No, I don't know.
You ever tried out one which mean you have yeah, I just thought of it. I just put it in my phone there. Thank you. Yeah, sure. Thanks. Once again, thanks for
A little bit. I have an idea of my own. I'm kind of working on it here and there. It's just not
You guys would know this. Who sings Closing Time? What's the song called? Is it Closing Time?
Yeah. Like Third Eye Blind? I think it's
Yeah, I think so. I'm not afraid, so.
Am I right? Oh, so I said
oh, okay.
Thanks for hosting this. Yeah, totally. Thank you. It was really good. So, it's our first time here. We're just very early stages. Yeah, we're like 2 weeks into the idea. David, nice to meet Definitely there's something like maybe a quick monster. Yeah.
No, do it back to
Yes, I am. And I'm using my little brother.
Hey guys, it's time to leave. Please take your trash, take care of it, and start moving out Capital Factory. Boom!
Well, you can find me online everywhere, so I don't know. You can find me on
It's over there. You want to go get it?
Don't forget to get your trash, guys. Thanks for coming again.
You're telling me maybe just that's all right. That's a whole other problem.
Thanks. I hope that went well.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're having trouble getting your book produced. I don't know. Moving into digital. Okay, so
Thank you very much. Yeah, well,
I'll email you.
Reach out to
if there's any way I can help you produce your book.
Thank you. Yeah, we get so much other stuff going on. It's, it's what it is. Yeah, I was hoping it would be live.
What do you think?
With the tech map or the GoFounder meeting?
No. My phone just died. You should read it.
Let me see this.
Just because.
Let me see this.
Other people do that. Beyond our convenience, all of this other
Yeah, actually.
I'm on there.
Huh?
I'm on there. Like, not be on the
But I'm thinking
at my last.
All right, guys, it's time to clear the room. I'm sorry. You all got to start moving outside. Have a good night.
Well, she sent it off. It's more the visual side.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
I loved your questions.
Thank you. So, yeah, it's more the visual side, like what strings do you what
It's great. I need to read it. Yeah.
You do, you
Yeah,
do.
sure.
Because what's really awesome is this legal side can say, the soft side of partnership. And really, it's like when they say, oh, well, I'm going to do the 3-week trip. How do you just going to chat. This is, as long as there's some structure for what do you perceive? My role is going to be, what do I serve? Your role is going to be. And that was the biggest problem I said, this is an investment, and my expectations after 6 months to a year, this is up and running. But I will be no more than 8 hours to 10 hours a month. I'm just going to be managing and you can't do. And it was really amazing, even though we had worked together, for over a year and a half. She was a star employee. I was like so clear. It was really clear the values and the expectations. Even if I had said certain things, she really didn't perceive. She was like, "You bought a business. Isn't that your life?" I'm like, "No, I have a really well-paying corporate job. That's not my job. That's your job. That's what you were hired on." So, and I thought I could get around not going through that because of our experience together being so favorable. And since then, I'm like, I need to take that time to really go through that process. And also, they encourage you to write it down. What do you perceive your talents to be? What do you perceive the other partner's talents to be? What do you perceive they're going to contribute to the partnership and vice versa?
It's great.
What's out of balance?
Yeah, I think it's awesome because I talk a lot about work out. There's a lot more room, I think, for things to work out. Like, I actually, I'm pretty hopeful that a lot of people don't need to take a 3-week trip into the assignments, but so.
Somebody had a.
Oh, that's Moby stuff.
Oh, that's Moby's?
I think so. Yeah, I'll bring it to him.
Part of our practice is that in we're